Alright, we're going to move on to the magic phase. This right here, 2 high elf wizards that, yeah, I know, they're not painted. I'm terrible. I'm more of a player than a painter. I am very slow at painting. Anyways, magic phase. Every army, no matter whether you're Tomb Kings, dwarves have no spell ability, casting, but they like to shut down magic. Anyways, gets 2 dice. 2 dice for their casting phase. So then you get, let's just say this guy on the left, the guy, tall guy with the staff, is my general. He's a level 4 magic user, which is the highest level you can be in the game. And then this other magic user, let's say he's a level 2. That's a hero level. That's the highest a hero level can be. So in the casting phase, you get, like I said, 2 for the army. And since this guy's a level 4, he has 4 dice. And since this guy's a level 2, he has 2 dice. So your magic phase, if you count it up, there's 8 dice right there. Okay, these 2 right here are the army dice. Either wizard can use these dice to cast their spell. One wizard can use them both. Okay, to cast your spell, you roll the number, you can roll your level plus 1 in dice. So the guy on the left, who's my general, he could roll 5 dice to get off a casting a spell. Where my level 2 over here, he could roll a 3. Okay. The more dice you roll, the better chance you get of irresistible force. Irresistible force is when at least 2 of your dice come up 6s. Okay, that means on an irresistible force it can't be dispelled or stopped. Conversely, if you roll snake eyes, no matter what the other dice are, that's a miscast. Bad things can happen to you, so it's high risk, high reward kind of thing. So these guys, they have 8 dice. This level 4 guy knows at least 4 spells. The level 2 knows at least 2. You get 1 spell per level. You randomly generate these per your army book. Okay. There are 8 lores in the main rule book. The high elves also have their own. So depending on your army, you get to pick. And let's say I take from the high elf lore. So if I take from the high elf lore, you would roll to see which spells before you deploy units. And you notice I rolled a 3, 4, 5, and 6. You would look at those spells, and then any of these spells that you didn't want, let's just say number 4 for whatever reason, you could change that to 1. All armies have that ability, with the exception of Tomb Kings and I believe Ogres, because they know all their spells and all their lists, but that's those are different situations. So you can substitute. Let's say you rolled 2 6s. Well, this is what you rolled for spells. Well, these 2 are the same, so you'd get to roll them. I'm sorry. You would keep 1 6 and roll the other one. Look. So if that came up another, you could roll it again till you have 4 different numbers. And then once you have 4 different numbers, you can swap one of those spells for your level 1. Alright, one note on picking spells. Let's say the high elves want to take high magic and then maybe lore of fire. Each wizard has to pick all of his spells from the same lore. Right now the only exception to that rule is the slan for the lizardmen. And I believe that's changing. Their new book comes out next month, so that might change that. So he could take fire lore, or he could take fire lore, or they could both take fire lore. But he couldn't take, since he gets 4 spells being a level 4, he couldn't take 2 from fire and 2 from high elf. So the cool thing is when you have a choice of multiple lores, especially in tournaments, you can, some lores work better than other lores against certain opponents, like against Bretonnians and dwarves. The lore of metal is great. Guys in heavy armor, and it worked for chaos too, is good for them. So anyways, that's how you do magic. Each spell has a casting level, and to cast that spell you basically roll as many dice as you can up to your level plus 1. Let's just say most armies have access to a casting level 8 magic missile spell. So that means they need to roll an 8 or higher. I rolled, well, you can see, 15 on 3 dice. Normally your opponent would get to try to stop that with his dispel dice. But like I mentioned earlier in the video, Double six is irresistible force, so that spell would go off automatically. Okay. Let's say it didn't go off. Let's say I rolled 11. Then your opponent would take his dispel dice, and he can roll from 1 to the maximum. There are no level limits, like in casting, to try to stop that spell. So for him to stop that spell, he either has to roll an 11 or higher, or he can use a dispel scroll, which is a magic item, which automatically dispels or stops that spell, but it will not stop irresistible force. Alright, the kinds of spells in the game are like remains in play is one example. Which means if this wizard casts that spell, then he can't cast any more spells. So a lot of times you want to save remains in plays for his last spell that wizard plans on casting. Another type of spell is the magic missile spell I was talking about. They're called different things, but you have to actually have line of sight. So this wizard would actually have to see Saurus warriors to shoot them, to do a spell. And just like shooting, you cannot cast a spell into close combat unless it says so in the spell description. And like I said, the spell descriptions, they're in everybody's army books. And basically I think I went over everything in casting a spell. Alright, now to dispel a spell or stop a spell. Here again you get 2 dice for your army. Dwarves have a special rule since they don't cast spells. They get 4 dice. And then, it's a little more tricky. Remember this guy on the left was a level 4, this guy was a level 2. Well, you get 1 dispel dice for every 2 levels. So, if this guy is a level 1 or a level 2, he gets 1 dice. Since this guy is a level 4, he would get 2 dice. And you pull all these together, no wizard is doing it, so you would have 5 dispel dice to shut down your the magic of your opponent. And to stop a spell, you basically have to roll, like I mentioned, the same number or higher. If a person casts a spell, rolls lower than the number they needed, then those dice are wasted. You don't have to dispel, you don't have to use any dice. The only time you declare that you're using dice is when the spell is successfully cast. Okay, I know I think I said final notes, but this is final notes on the magic phase. Each spell that you have can only be cast once per phase. So these 2 magic users, if they took the same lore, could theoretically have the same spell. They could both attempt to cast that spell once. And what I mean by attempt to cast, let's say he tries to get the spell off and doesn't roll high enough. Well, he can't try that spell again. Let's say he does get it off. Here again, he's cast it once, so he can't try again. Exceptions to this, vampires have some their spells can be cast multiple times, so they can keep trying the same spell over and over, called spamming. Their spells, over and over and over, and they have ridiculously low casting levels, so a lot of people have heartburn with their spells. The Tomb Kings also, their magic phase is different than the standard phase that the rest of the Warhammer world uses. Their spells automatically go off, and it's up to you to stop them. One word for their magic phase is relentless. I mean, you know it's coming, you've got to stop it. You got to have the magic defenses. And then the Ogres, they can do multiple castings, but I believe it's at a higher level each time. I'm not really that familiar with the Ogre Kingdom army. But anyways, your spells, like I said, I enjoy the magic phase. You can have, anything from missiles that do damage, just like in a shooting phase. You can slow their movement, make them take a panic test, make them take initiative tests. I mean, there's all kinds of different things. So the magic phase is one of my favorites in the whole game. Next we're going to talk about is the shooting phase.